you wake up with the feeling that you're already behind. The alarm has gone off 3 times, and each time you swore it would be the last. But now the morning's mostly gone, and so has your motivation. Still groggy, you reach for your phone. It's automatic at this point. Thumb to screen, brain off. You scroll through post after post, video after video, some influencers flexing their lifestyles, others ranting about things you don't care about. You don't admire them. If anything, you feel disgusted. You think, why do I even look at this stuff? But you keep looking. Something in you can't stop. Deep down, you know you're capable of more. You're smarter than this, more creative. You sense it. You've always sensed it. But instead of channeling that energy, you watch time slip through your fingers. Eventually, you drag yourself out of bed. You start your day not with purpose, but with a cup of coffee and maybe a cigarette, the kind of pairing that feels like it belongs in the life of someone with a dark sense of humor. The day stretches ahead of you like an unwritten sentence. You tell yourself, today I'll actually get something done. But before you know it, you've drifted into distractions, video games, mindless texts, a call from a friend, a scroll through apps you don't even like anymore. Maybe a nap, a long one. You wake up and the light outside has changed. Evening has arrived. And with it comes that all too familiar feeling, emptiness, guilt, disappointment. You ask yourself, what did I even do today? As the evening light filters through the window, a strange sadness creeps in. You look around your room or your apartment or whatever space you've turned into your little sanctuary of avoidance, and everything feels muted, dim, like the energy has drained from the walls. You can't shake the feeling that you've wasted the day, again. And worse than that, you've wasted yourself. You start thinking about all the people you know or follow who seem to be doing something with their lives. Someone you went to school with just bought a house. Another one launched a business. Someone else got married or moved to a new city or started a non-profit. And you're still here. Not broken, but not built. Not failing, but not thriving. You feel like you're holding on to something, some potential, but you don't know what to do with it. You call yourself an artist, but you haven't made anything in weeks. You call yourself a writer, but the document is still blank. You have dreams, but they stay locked in your head, safer as fantasies than as failures. You might even tell yourself that you're just waiting for the right moment, for the right mood, for that burst of clarity to suddenly arrive and light the way. But that moment never comes. Instead, you scroll a little more. You refresh the app. You open your notes app and type a sentence or two, then delete it. You consider journaling, but the thought of seeing your own thoughts on paper somehow makes it worse. You start to wonder if maybe you're just lazy, maybe you're the problem. But that doesn't feel quite right either. It's not laziness. It's something deeper, something heavier, something harder to name. You're stuck in the space between who you are and who you could be. And that gap, that unbearable in between, that's where the man-child lives. Psychologists have a name for this feeling, for this strange limbo where you're too old to be a teenager, but too detached to feel like an adult. Carl Jung called it Puer Aeternus, the eternal boy. You've probably heard it in more casual terms, the man-child, Peter Pan syndrome, someone who resists growing up, not in a playful or youthful way, but in a deeper, psychological sense. Someone whose life is driven by the avoidance of everything that makes us mortal: responsibility, failure, limitations, disappointment, the slow grind of time. The eternal boy doesn't just dislike responsibility, he fears it. He avoids structure the way a child avoids bedtime. Not because structure is evil, but because it signals the end of play, the end of freedom, the start of something far more serious. So instead, he floats through life. Not totally present, not fully invested, living each day as if it's temporary, as if something real will eventually start. But not yet. Jung called this way of living the provisional life. You exist in theory. You talk about what you'll become, what you could do, who you might be. But none of it ever takes form. You stay in the blueprint stage. All potential, no foundation. And it's not that you lack talent, far from it. In fact, this archetype often shows up in people who are extremely gifted. You were probably one of the smart kids, the creative one, the deep thinker. You picked things up quickly. You were told you had a bright future. Maybe you still believe that. But now, as an adult, the world doesn't reward potential anymore. It rewards action, follow-through, boring consistency. And that's where the terror begins. Because taking action risks revealing the truth. What if you're not as special as you always believed? What if your potential doesn't live up to your imagination? So you stay right where you are, on the edge of life, never quite committing, never quite risking, never quite growing up. It's easy to assume the man-child is simply lazy or self-absorbed, but look closer and you'll see it's not laziness. It's fear wrapped in nostalgia. It's the refusal to choose, not because nothing is appealing, but because everything once was. There's something intoxicating about being on the verge of something great, the beginning of a love story, the first time you pick up a guitar or write a brilliant sentence or travel to a new country. Everything feels wide open, anything is possible, and that feeling, that's the high the eternal boy keeps chasing. Like Sylvia Plath's fig tree metaphor, you sit in front of a tree, every branch holding a different life. One has love, another has travel, another has creative success. But as you sit and hesitate, unable to choose, the figs begin to rot and fall. One by one, the lives you could have lived slip away. To choose one path is to let all the others die. And for the man-child, that feels unbearable. Because choosing means growing up. And growing up means limitation. It means aging. It means failure. It means maybe never becoming the person you imagined you'd be. And so, instead, you stay in the middle. Not moving forward, but not letting go. Not committing to the job you hate, but not building the one you dream of. Not settling down in a relationship, but also not walking away. Everything in your life remains almost good, almost started, almost done, and yet you still believe you're meant for more. You tell yourself you're just waiting for the right moment, when inspiration hits, when timing aligns, when you finally feel ready. But that moment never comes. Because growing up doesn't come with a signal. It doesn't feel like clarity. It feels like work, like compromise, like facing the truth about who you are right now, not who you hope to become someday. Still, the dream holds you. It whispers, don't settle. Not yet. You're meant for something greater. And that whisper is louder than reality. It keeps you suspended in a space where you never have to fail, because you never truly try. Here's the part no one likes to admit. The eternal child isn't just a personal problem. It's not just your fault. It's a collective condition, and in many ways, a cultural design. We live in a world obsessed with beginnings. Our favorite stories are about the first kiss, the first success, the first rebellion. Movies end after the characters fall in love, not when they start paying rent together. Songs are written about the butterflies, not the bills. We glorify the moment before life gets real, before commitment, before responsibility. So of course we fall in love with potential. We're trained to. We idolize youth. We worship the idea of being on the brink. Teenage heartbreak. The college dropout with the billion-dollar idea. The mysterious wanderer who doesn't play by society's rules. They're everywhere. In books, in music, in marketing. And these stories burn themselves into our minds. It's no wonder then that when we're faced with the actual day-to-day demands of adulthood, it all feels hollow, uninspiring, like we were promised something grand, but given a spreadsheet and a 9-to-5. And it doesn't help that we're navigating this in an age where everything is unstable. Careers that used to offer security now dissolve overnight. Housing is expensive, wages feel frozen, climate news is terrifying. We're told to plan for the future, but no one knows what that future looks like. So the eternal child does what feels logical. They opt out. Why commit to a broken system? Why grind yourself down for a world that looks rigged? Why tie yourself to anything that could fall apart tomorrow? It starts to feel like a kind of rebellion, a quiet resistance. You tell yourself you're not behind, you're just refusing to play the game, you're keeping your options open, you're staying free. But freedom without direction is just drifting, and drifting, for long enough, starts to rot from the inside. Even if you don't feel it yet, something deep in you knows. There's a cost to refusing to choose, and sooner or later you pay it. Here's where it gets complicated. The man-child isn't someone who lacks ability. In fact, they're often the opposite. They were the gifted kid, the standout, the prodigy, the one who drew better than the rest of the class, or played piano without being taught, or always had something clever to say in group discussions. They were told from a young age, "You're special, you're meant for greatness." And they believed it. Why wouldn't they? Everything came easily. People praised them for doing what felt natural. They didn't need to try very hard. They were naturally talented. But as they got older, the world shifted. Suddenly, praise stopped coming for just showing up. Now, the rules changed. You had to practice, work, grind, fail, and that was new. That was scary. Because when you grow up being told you're special, the idea of being just okay feels unbearable. To risk being average is a threat to your entire identity. So instead of stepping into unfamiliar territory where you might struggle or look foolish, you cling to the thing you know, potential. The tragedy is this. You don't stop dreaming. You just stop doing. You convince yourself, I'm not working on it right now, but I could. I could be a great musician. I could write a novel. I could build something amazing. And those coulds become your comfort, because the moment you try for real, it becomes real. And if it's real, it can fail. And if it fails, then maybe you're not who you thought you were. So the gifted child becomes the man-child. Still intelligent, still creative, still full of promise, but trapped in a loop of their own design. It's not that you don't have potential, it's that potential alone isn't enough anymore. What once made you feel powerful now feels like a prison. You don't want to find out that your ceiling is lower than you imagined. So you don't climb. You stay where it's safe, in the idea of greatness, not the reality of the climb it requires. If childhood was a moment in time, Neverland is a mindset, a place where people never grow up, where consequences are vague, reality is negotiable, and no one really asks anything of you. For the man-child, Neverland becomes a lifestyle. And it doesn't always look sad. In fact, it can look fun. It's the late-night parties, the impulsive road trips, the endless flings. It's a life filled with movement, but no direction. There's always something happening, a new group of friends, a new idea for a startup, plans to just travel for a bit, music, article philosophy, big talk, big dreams. But everything is always just beginning, always almost something. They gather around them a crew, a tribe of fellow wanderers, misfits, visionaries, drifters, people who speak the same language. We're figuring it out. We're not like them. They sold out, we're still free. And sure, it feels romantic for a while. You build a bubble with people who validate your indecision. You drink, you laugh, you daydream together, you chase highs, you live in the moment. But beneath the surface, there's a quiet panic, a fear you don't want to name. What if this is all there is? What if I never leave Neverland? Because time keeps ticking. And even if you don't act like it matters, somewhere inside, you feel it. The people who left the party are building something. They're not better than you, but they're committed. And that commitment creates results, lives, homes, stability, peace. Meanwhile, you're still cycling through ideas, still dating people who aren't quite right, still telling yourself, I'm just not ready to settle. But maybe that's not true. Maybe you're not afraid of settling. You're afraid of settling into something real, because real things come with flaws, real things come with limits, and the man-child would rather keep the fantasy alive than face the inevitable disappointment of the real. So they stay, in the music, in the bar, in the stories, in Neverland. And the longer they stay, the harder it becomes to imagine ever leaving. The man-child isn't alone in Neverland. He collects lovers the way others collect memories, fragmented, half-finished, almost beautiful. It always starts out intense, magnetic, dreamy. They're full of words like connection and alignment. They talk about soulmates and destiny. They might even write poetry about you, stay up all night talking, make plans for something that feels bigger than life. But over time, the pattern reveals itself. Something's always off. She snores. He lives too far away. She wants to talk about the future. He texts too often. They aren't the one, they say. Not exactly. And so, with every passing day, the excuses grow. The door to escape opens just a little more, because deep down, something terrifying is happening. This person might actually be real. They might stick. They might become part of your story. And the eternal child can't bear that. Not because they don't feel love, but because love is a form of anchoring. And anchoring feels like growing up. The idea of love is intoxicating. The chase, the fantasy, the mystery. But love in practice, that's something else entirely. It's showing up on the bad days. It's taking responsibility for someone else's heart. It's watching the magic wear off and choosing to stay anyway. That's terrifying for someone who still believes that somewhere out there's someone perfect, someone who won't challenge them, disappoint them, or pull them deeper into reality. So they leave, or worse, they slowly pull away without ever explaining why. A soft ghosting, a vague detachment. They say they need space, or that they're working on themselves, or that it's just bad timing. But the truth is harder to say. They're afraid of what happens when love stops being a story and starts being a commitment. And afterward, they might feel lonely. They might scroll through photos or old messages. They might even cry. But it won't last long, because there's always another profile, another crush, another beginning, another illusion of love that doesn't require the terrifying risk of being seen completely. Because being seen means being known, and being known means being real, and real is still too much. At some point, the silence grows louder. Even in Neverland, even in the chaos of distractions, you start to hear it. The ache, the ghost of something unlived, the life you could have had, the partner you pushed away, the art you didn't make, the opportunities you ignored because they asked too much of you, too much presence, too much risk, too much you. And maybe for a while you don't feel it. You're too busy, too stimulated, too entertained. You tell yourself you're still in your becoming phase, still figuring it out, still waiting for things to click. But then, you start to see the gaps. Friends grow distant, projects fade, the same conversations repeat. The things that once felt romantic now feel repetitive. And in quiet moments you wonder, how long can I keep this going? How many more almosts do I get before life stops offering me new beginnings? The truth is this, drifting may feel safe, but it is not neutral. Every year spent avoiding your own life is a year you don't get back. Every chance you don't take becomes a memory you never get to make. And even the strongest fantasy begins to wear thin. You can only repeat the same pattern so many times before you start to suspect. Maybe the problem isn't out there. Maybe it's in here. And if you can get to that moment, if you can really sit in it, not distract yourself, not justify it, not run from it, that's the first crack. That's where change can begin. Because here's what nobody tells the eternal child. Growing up doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean surrendering your creativity, your wonder, your sense of possibility. It means learning how to carry those things with you into the real world, To protect them not by hiding, but by building something solid enough to hold them. It's not about killing the child inside you. It's about becoming someone strong enough to care for that child properly, to nurture the dream and do the dishes, to love deeply and take the trash out, to show up, especially when it's not exciting. Carl Jung didn't believe we had to kill off the eternal child. He believed we had to integrate it, to bring the dreamer into the world of responsibility, not to crush their spirit, but to give it a home. That's the part most people misunderstand. They think growing up means becoming dull, predictable, boring, trading imagination for taxes and deadlines. But true maturity isn't the death of wonder. It's its transformation. It's the poet who shows up to the job because she believes in what she's building. It's the artist who creates despite the self-doubt, not just when inspiration hits. It's the lover who chooses someone and stays, even when it's hard, because building love is more meaningful than chasing butterflies. Being an adult doesn't mean becoming a cog in the machine. It means becoming a person who knows what they care about and is willing to work for it. And that takes courage. Not the kind of courage that writes epic Instagram captions, but the quiet kind, the daily kind, the courage to be normal, to ride the bus, to clock in, to wake up early, to get rejected, to make something that doesn't go viral, to tell someone how you feel and risk being misunderstood. Those things aren't glamorous, they're not cinematic, but they are real, and real is where everything meaningful happens. Integration is realizing that your creative energy, your playfulness, your spontaneity, your depth, doesn't disappear in adulthood. It just changes form. It becomes a part of your foundation, not your excuse. And when that happens, something shifts. The anxiety lessens. You start to trust yourself. You begin to feel a different kind of freedom. Not the freedom of avoiding everything, but the freedom of standing on something solid you built yourself. That's when you realize you're no longer just imagining your life. You're living it. Not perfect, not flashy, but real. And somehow, that's better than the dream ever was. Here's the truth. No one's coming to save you. Not your parents, not your old teachers, not a YouTube algorithm or a dream job or a magical soulmate who'll finally make everything click. You've danced along the edges of life long enough. You've waited, hesitated, overthought, hoped, escaped. You've convinced yourself you're just not ready yet. But here's the secret no one tells you. You'll never feel ready. Not completely. Not in the way you're waiting for. Clarity doesn't come before the leap. It comes after. Courage isn't a mood. It's a decision. And maturity isn't something that just happens one day. It's something you choose, day after day, when it would be easier to turn back. So what now? Start small, start anywhere. Pick one thing, one relationship, one habit. Show up for it. Let it be imperfect. Let it frustrate you. Let it challenge your ego. But stay. Commit. Not because it's flashy or thrilling, but because you're done waiting to live your life. Ask yourself, what do I actually care about? What would I regret not doing? Who do I want to be, not in fantasy, but in reality? Then take one real step toward that. No more, I could have been. No more, one day I'll. No more hoping potential will carry you forever. Because it won't. And deep down, you know that. It's time to let go of the version of yourself that only existed in theory. The dreamer who stayed in bed. The visionary who never pressed publish. The lover who left before things got hard. The artist who refused to finish. Honor that part of you. Thank it for surviving. But now, choose something different. Choose to build. Choose to finish. Choose to love. Choose to begin your real life, right here, exactly where you are. Not later, not when it's perfect, not when you feel inspired. Now, because the eternal child can only be free when the adult finally arrives to lead them home. And that adult is you.